Hello, this is Dave Ulmer, Vice President of Software Development for EnergyCAP, and we're glad that you can join us today to talk through the technical installation instructions for EnergyCAP version 7, the latest version of EnergyCAP software. I'm joined today by Chris Hadashell, our Assistant Vice President of Software Development. He'll be helping me field questions throughout the webinar and talk through some of the details. If you do have questions along the way, please feel free to submit those via the GoToWebinar tool, and we'll do our best to answer as many as we can as we get farther into today's discussion. I also want to let you know that this session is being recorded for future viewing reference, so feel free to just enjoy, and you can always view it again later on if you need to take additional notes. As I mentioned, we're going to be talking today about EnergyCAP version 7. And version 7 is the latest iteration of EnergyCAP software. It's the 7th generation of our software. We have several decades of history where we have been working to refine utility bill management and energy management data reporting. And in particular, with EnergyCAP version 7, we're trying to make that process easier, smarter, and friendlier for you and the employees that you represent at your companies as well. From a technical perspective, the upgrades between EnergyCAP version 3 and version 7 are significant. In fact, EnergyCAP version 7 is a complete rewrite of the application. If you were to log into EnergyCAP version 3, one of the things you'll notice is that our former platform was based on Adobe Flex and Flash technologies. And EnergyCAP version 7, however, has been built using HTML5 and some of the latest web technologies. So that's one of the big technical transitions that you'll see between EnergyCAP version 3 and version 7. We'll talk more about some of the technologies used in the back end, but from a user perspective, that's one of the most significant changes that they'll see from a technology perspective. To reiterate the purpose of this webinar, we are going to be talking through the installation procedures and the system requirements for hosting EnergyCAP version 7. The audience that we're going to gear our conversation to today is IT professionals for our EnergyCAP customers who host the EnergyCAP software themselves. Our topics today include the system requirements for EnergyCAP version 7, the database upgrade process, the EnergyCAP version 3 upgrade process, installation and configuration of EnergyCAP version 7 for the first time, and then how to validate the installation as well. From a timing perspective, the software that I'm showing you today will be available for you to request starting tomorrow, February 1st, 2018. We're going to make EnergyCAP version 7 available upon request from our customers who are in maintenance contract. You can request the installation package by submitting a support ticket online. The support address is here, support.energycap.com. You can create a support ticket on behalf of your organization. We will then deliver the version 7 installation package to you via your EnergyCAP FTP account. If for some reason you don't have that account or can't find the credentials for that, you can put that into the support ticket, and our support team will work with you to make sure that you get access to the installation package. We are currently in a pre-production release for self-hosted clients, so you can install this in a non-production environment for testing and verification purposes. But the full production build will be made available to you in March, and we'll be communicating with that when we get closer to that date in particular. But we wanted to give you some lead time, especially since some of the system requirements have been updated, to make sure that you could download the software, test it out, try it out, make sure that your system and your network, et cetera, is configured and ready to go so that when the production build is available in March, you can hit the ground running. Let's take a little bit of time to talk through the infrastructure requirements for EnergyCAP version 7. First off, EnergyCAP version 7 is a web application, and it requires IIS as a web server, as well as 3 packages that need to be installed on that server as well: .NET Framework 4.6, .NET Core Hosting Bundle, and Crystal Reports 13 Runtime. These are all libraries that we provide during the installation process, and we'll talk more about that in a little bit. One upgrade in terms of requirements for EnergyCAP is an upgrade to the server, the SQL Server in particular. EnergyCAP 7 works with SQL Server 2012 and beyond. So if you have not yet migrated your EnergyCAP database to SQL Server 2012 or higher, now would be a good time to start that planning process. Two additional services that are required by EnergyCAP version 7 are a file storage location, we'll talk more about that in a little bit, as well as a Redis system for quick caching. EnergyCAP version 7 supports 3 browsers, Google Chrome, Microsoft Edge, and Mozilla Firefox. What you'll notice here is that Internet Explorer is not a supported browser, and that's because the technologies that we're building into EnergyCAP version 7 are some of the latest web technologies, and as you're probably aware, Internet Explorer is a product that is going to be reaching end of life soon and will not be upgraded to use some of the latest web technologies. So we've been focusing our attention on those browsers that will continue to be updated and supportable in the future, including Chrome, Edge, and Firefox. I wanted to start by giving you an overview of the EnergyCAP system and just remind you a little bit about the different pieces of the infrastructure, some of which you already have installed, and just talk through what they are, what their purpose is, and then we'll talk about which ones are getting updates as part of the EnergyCAP version 7 installation process. So at its core, there is the EnergyCAP database, and as I mentioned before, you need to be running that database in SQL Server 2012 or higher compatibility mode in order to support EnergyCAP version 7. EnergyCAP version 3 included an installation package in IIS that had some similar requirements to version 7. There were also scheduled Windows tasks to perform daily weather imports, as well as to send out report distributions via email. We also use a system called a catalog service. This is an EnergyCAP developed service that allows you to have one web server that can direct your users to multiple databases. Let me give you an example. If in your environment you'd like to have both a production and a test version of EnergyCAP running, a test database as well as a production database, both of those databases can use the same web server. Users go to one web address, and one of the bits of information they can provide is a data source. That is a unique identifier that tells the EnergyCAP system which particular database you want to reach. That information is looked up in the catalog service, and then the user is directed directly to that particular database wherever it is. So the catalog service is a key component because it is the lookup mechanism that the EnergyCAP application uses to link a user to a particular database. Even if you have only one database that you're hosting in your environment, the catalog service is still used as that point of reference that allows the user to make the connection to the proper database location. When we look over at the EnergyCAP version 7 installation, again, you'll see some very similar components. For instance, the IIS web server with many of the same types of libraries we had before. However, you will note that .NET Core is an additional library that's needed for EnergyCAP version 7. We've also changed the way we're using the Crystal runtime engine, so you will need to have a separate IIS configuration for version 7 because it will be using the Crystal 13 64-bit runtime. Two additional components that are used by EnergyCAP version 7. One is a file store, and this is a location that the application can write to and read from. There are certain processes in version 7 that will store files as they're uploaded into the system by users, as well as some actions that users take generate files that record the history of those particular transactions. Therefore, we now need a file store to place those files along the way. We also have a Redis cache caching system that we are integrating with to further improve performance for users. Before I move on, one of the questions that we received is, do we support Safari, the Apple built-in browser? So Safari is not on our list of supported browsers. It's not because EnergyCAP version 7 does not work well with it. In fact, we believe it works fairly well. However, just to reduce some of the testing resources required, we're not putting that on the list of supported browsers right now. To our knowledge, we don't know of any issues using Safari, but again, it's not a fully supported browser by EnergyCAP at this time. If you use it, just please note that if you run into any unexpected behavior, we may not have a fix or a patch for that, but it is not an officially supported browser. Okay. As we talk through the installation process today, I've starred here the particular elements that either require some configuration changes or updates to support the EnergyCAP version 7 installation. So we'll be talking about upgrades to the version 3 service, getting onto the latest version of EnergyCAP version 3. We'll have upgrades to the database that we'll talk about, and then obviously the new components that are being installed and configured as part of version 7. When you create the support ticket and request the version 7 installation package, you'll find that that package contains 4 main directories, and those directories are listed here. The first is a directory with database scripts. We've included the SQL scripts that are required to upgrade from EnergyCAP database version 74 through all the various versions to our latest version, which is EnergyCAP database version 86. We've also included the script to create a new catalog service database if you wanted to do that for testing purposes. And there's also a script in the folder to synchronize the system user, and I'll talk more about that in a little bit. Then we have a folder with the EnergyCAP version 3 installation files. These are the latest, this is the latest version of EnergyCAP version 3. So you'll find the installation guide, the installation files, as well as the required IIS libraries to support version 3 in that folder. The third folder has the latest version of EnergyCAP version 3 reports. The report files that we provide on a regular basis include images to go along with our reports, as well as the report executables that are used by the system. Those reports get copied on top of the version 3 installation once version 3 is up and running. And then the last folder is the folder that will contain the files needed for EnergyCAP version 7. It will include the version 7 installation guide, the installation files themselves, as well as the required IIS libraries. We're going to dive into each of these in a little more detail. The first question you may have is, what version of EnergyCAP are we running now? And this is the easiest way for you to determine that. If you log into EnergyCAP and you go to the More menu that's at the top of the screen and select About, we provide information about both the database version that you're currently hosting, as well as the product version. So those are the two versions that will be important to you as you're looking at the upgrades, in particular the database version, because the database upgrade scripts start with whichever version you're on now and then walk you through the various upgrades to get to database version 86. Let's talk a little more about the database upgrade. I mentioned it already, but just want to reiterate that you must use SQL Server compatibility level 110 or higher. That is SQL Server 2012 or higher. So if you're migrating your database to a SQL 2012 database, remember to check the compatibility mode, or excuse me, compatibility level to make sure that it's at least at 110 or higher. To upgrade the database to version 86, you would use the included upgrade scripts. Depending on the version of the database that you're running now, you may need to run multiple upgrade scripts in succession in order to get to database version 86. If you create a brand new database, for instance, a new testing database that you'd like to use for this purpose, you will need to register that database in the catalog service. Again, the catalog service is EnergyCAP's lookup tool that helps map a particular user request to the correct database. So if you're going to be creating a new database for testing purposes, you'll need to register that with the catalog service. We won't be going through those instructions today, but they are included in the EnergyCAP version 3 installation guide, which is part of the installation package. I mentioned previously that there's an additional database script available. It's a synchronization script that will synchronize the system user that the EnergyCAP application server uses to log into the database with a SQL Server user account. And that's helpful when you do restore a backup of a database to synchronize the internal database user to the SQL Server database itself. Once you've got the database upgraded to database 86, then it's time to upgrade EnergyCAP version 7 or version 3, excuse me. EnergyCAP version 3 must be upgraded to version 3.6.2. That's the latest version of EnergyCAP version 3. This version is supported by database 86. And the way you perform an upgrade in EnergyCAP version 3 is that you replace the web server content that's already deployed with the files that we're providing in the installation package. It's important to remember not to replace any specific configuration files that you have configured for your environment, or to make a backup of those in advance so that you can reapply those changes to your web server. Once you've copied the installation files for 3.6.2 onto the web server, you can verify that those configuration or that upgrade has been successful by logging into EnergyCAP version 3 as you have in the past. Once you've logged in, again, you can use the About tab, or excuse me, the More tab at the top of the screen and About to look at the version of EnergyCAP 3 that you are running. You must have at least one user log into EnergyCAP version 3 to fully process the upgrade before you attempt to log into EnergyCAP version 7. And this is important. So once you have upgraded version 3, we've built in some upgrades throughout the past few years into version 3 that EnergyCAP version 7 assumes are already there. So it's important, once you've upgraded EnergyCAP version 3, to log in with at least one user account. That will trigger the process for upgrading the database and making final tweaks that are required to prepare for the EnergyCAP version 7 installation. So now we're going to switch gears from upgrading the EnergyCAP database and EnergyCAP version 3 to some of the new components that are required as part of EnergyCAP version 7. I mentioned both of these before, but we'll reiterate the purpose of the file store is to have the ability for the application to store certain files that are processed by the users, as well as to generate certain logs of information based on their actions. Both the file store and the Redis service must be available for EnergyCAP version 7's features to work properly. So you can configure the file store, and then you'll want to verify that the IIS server that you're going to use to host EnergyCAP version 7 has access to connect with a UNC path to that file store. Similarly, once you configure the Redis database, verify that the IIS server that you're using to host version 7 can also properly connect to the Redis database. Once you verify that the file store and the Redis server are working properly, then you can install the required libraries that are needed for EnergyCAP version 7 to work properly with IIS. And I mentioned them before. These are the 3 different libraries: the .NET Framework 4.6 or higher, .NET Core 2.0.5 or higher, and Crystal Reports 13 runtime, the 64-bit version. Those 3 library components and their installers are included in the installation package that we will be providing. Those 3 packages prepare the IIS server so that then you're ready to install and configure EnergyCAP version 7. The installation of version 7 is pretty straightforward. You're going to expand or extract the contents of the zip file that we're providing onto that web server. In this particular case, I just used an example folder of C EnergyCAP. So we're going to extract the files, the executable, from the zip file that we're providing, place those into this folder that's on your web server, and then in IIS you'll configure a new website. This is going to be a separate website from the version 3 website. You would set up a new website. In this case, I set up an example of a site name called EnergyCAP and a physical path pointing to that folder where we've extracted the files. In the installation guide that we're including in the zip, there are some additional details about the options used in IIS to configure IIS, and we have some screenshots and information there as well. But at a high level, you expand the contents of our zip into a folder, and then in IIS, set up a new website with a site name and directing to the physical path where you've placed those files. To assist you with setting the proper configuration in EnergyCAP version 7, we've included a tool directly into the EnergyCAP executable to create a configuration file, essentially a blank or empty configuration file for you to fill in the details for your environment. So you'll use the EnergyCAP version 7 configuration manager to generate a new configuration file for your environment. From a command prompt, you just run wherever you have stored the EnergyCAP executable, you run that executable passing in the option for create-config. That will create a config.json file, and then you can open that in any text editor to configure environment-specific values for your particular network, for your particular servers. These are the options that you will be configuring within that config.json file. You will specify the catalog service database connection string. So this is what will tie EnergyCAP version 7 to that lookup, that set of lookup tables that allows it to know where to find the particular database that the user is requesting. You'll provide the file store location as a UNC path. You'll provide the Redis connection settings, the report files location. So this is a location where the report process will store its files as it's working and preparing reports. This can be the same file path as the file store. They don't need to be separate, but we do provide two different options depending on how your particular environment is configured. And then the last set of settings to configure are email settings. And these email settings are used by EnergyCAP version 7 to send emails to users in your organization. There is an option for users, instead of running a report live, they can ask to have a report emailed to them by the system. These settings that you're setting here in the config.json file are the settings that will be used by the application for the email server from which the email should come and the email user from which the email should come as well. Once you have EnergyCAP version 7 installed in your IIS server and you have configured the config.json file as well, you're now ready to run the application and you can verify that it's working. You can launch the application from a command prompt, simply run the executable, and you'll see from that command prompt the particular port that's being used. The default is localhost 5000. You can use that to navigate from the web server that you're on directly to EnergyCAP to see if version 7 is loading properly. So this is even prior to processing within IIS. You can validate that the EnergyCAP installation files are in fact running and loading. So you can navigate directly to that local host address. Again, the default is localhost port 5000. You can go there, log in, and again, you would use the data sources that have been configured in your catalog service. You can see here on the screen As you're logging in, you provide a username, a password, and then a data source. Again, that's the key that tells EnergyCAP which particular database you want to access. Once you've logged in with an existing user, then you can confirm that the settings have been configured and that everything's running properly. If that's working for you, then you can go on to test that the IIS settings are also proper. So whatever the address is that you've provided in IIS for EnergyCAP, you can navigate to that address. Again, you should see the login screen. You can log in and verify that the installation has in fact worked properly. The last step to perform once you're in EnergyCAP version 7 is a step to update to the latest reports. So as bundled as part of EnergyCAP version 7 is a report update tool. So version 3 still requires you to go to our website, download the latest reports, and then manually deploy those onto the server. In version 7, we've built that logic into the application. You can navigate to the reports module in EnergyCAP. You select that in the left-hand side of the screen, and then you can see here there's a menu when you get to reports, and one of those menu options is install the latest reports. When you select that, the system will download and install the latest reports in the background. Going forward, EnergyCAP version 7, that will be the path that you use to update reports. It should make the process easier for your users and for you to manage. So in summary, we've highlighted here with the stars the different elements of the EnergyCAP network and topology that need to be upgraded or installed in order to get EnergyCAP version 7 working in your environment. The first step is to upgrade the EnergyCAP database. Must be on SQL 2012 or higher. Once that's been upgraded, you can install the latest version of EnergyCAP version 3. That can be installed and tested against the upgraded database to ensure that the database upgrade was successful and to ensure that the version 3 upgrade was also successful. Once that's been confirmed, you can start to configure the elements that are required for EnergyCAP version 7, in particular the file store and the Redis service. Those can be configured and tested to ensure connectivity from the IIS server. And then the last step is to configure EnergyCAP itself on the IIS server to expand the executable into a local directory on that server and to configure IIS to point to that directory. As you're upgrading, there are a number of things that could trip you up along the way. Here are two in particular that you may run into. The first is a database upgrade error. So if you're in the process of upgrading the database and the database upgrade script errors in some way, please contact EnergyCAP's support team. We can assist you with that and help you through maybe it's a particular configuration setting or something that's tripping up that database upgrade. The second is related to non-standard user roles. As part of the implementation of EnergyCAP version 7, we've moved to a standardized user role model. So if you're using a user that was created in EnergyCAP's install client or in EnergyCAP Online version 3, and you're using non-standard roles. In some cases, those roles, when a user logs into version 7, they'll still be allowed into version 7, but they'll have a read-only role. Essentially, we've locked down the system to prevent access beyond the access that they would have had in EnergyCAP version 3. Those non-standard roles right now must be created in the database and then assigned with setup spreadsheets. That's a process that we can help you with. We're going to be writing a technical article about that. However, what I'd like you to walk away with is that we're in a temporary process of having to create these through the database. We will be providing a tool within EnergyCAP version 7 to create custom roles that match the version 7 authentication model, and your users can be matched to those new roles. But in the interim, if you're having any trouble with a user not able to get access to the same things they had access to in 3, we can help you walk through that process of updating that user's role appropriately in version 7. Just to reiterate, if a user was created in EnergyCAP version 3 using one of the standard roles, this will not be an issue. All of the standard roles have been mapped to new roles in version 7. This is only for non-standard customized user roles and user permissions. Here's a list of some of the future updates, enhancements that you can expect coming from EnergyCAP. One of the things that we plan to release before the production build is a common EnergyCAP version 3 and version 7 login page. This is a login page that would be bundled with EnergyCAP version 7 so that your users can go to one login page and choose which of your 2 environments they would like to connect to. Would they like to connect to EnergyCAP version 3 or connect to EnergyCAP version 7? This is not bundled with the current installation package. So for now, your users, if they wanted to test version 7, will need to go to a different site and log into that site for 7 and into a separate site for version 3. But in the future, we will be including in the installation bundle a web page that can be configured so that you can log into both version 3 and version 7 from the same login page. Another enhancement in the future is Active Directory support, login support. That is not something that's built into EnergyCAP version 7 yet. It is something that will be done in the future, but that will not be available with the initial production release in March. You might remember that I mentioned that there are several scheduled tasks that you've already configured in your environments for importing weather on a daily basis and also sending reports through our report distribution tool. Those particular tools are not yet integrated into version 7, so they will continue to run as they have in the past on whatever server you have and work directly against the EnergyCAP database. In the future, those particular tools will be integrated into EnergyCAP version 7. I mentioned it previously, but the ability to create and manage custom roles through the application will be included. We expect that to be included in the initial production release. That is something right now temporarily that you have to do directly in through the database, but being able to manage that through EnergyCAP version 7 will be coming very soon. And the last item I wanted to mention here is that we also plan to bundle an application status page to the installation package in the future. And that would be a status page that can be used by your team to verify that things are installed and configured properly. So instead of having to walk through all of the steps and then log into the application to see if it's working, this would give you the ability to identify anything that could be a problem. For instance, maybe if the IIS server cannot access the file store, we know that there's a problem, and we can identify that even before you get farther in the installation process. One of the questions that we received is the install client, the EnergyCAP Enterprise Install Client, still supported and usable? And the answer to that right now is yes, it is. It's usable with database version 86. So as you upgrade to EnergyCAP version 86, you will be able to continue to use the installed client to access your EnergyCAP data. And we will let you know in the future when that tool is deprecated and no longer supported. But right now it is supported and it is available to use with a database that's also being used by EnergyCAP version 7. So to review, in terms of timeline, the EnergyCAP version 7 installation package will become available tomorrow by request. You can request it by submitting a support ticket online through support.energycap.com. When we receive your request, we'll provide that installation package to you via your EnergyCAP FTP account. That installation package will include the scripts required to upgrade the database, the latest version of EnergyCAP version 3, the latest version of EnergyCAP version 3 reports, as well as the latest version of EnergyCAP version 7. Those will all be included in the installation package along with installation instructions. It is currently available for use in non-production environments for testing and verification purposes. The full production build that can be used against your production databases will be made available to you in March. We received a question just about what is the end of life for some of the older EnergyCAP 3 versions, and I don't have an end of life date for those. In particular, someone asked about EnergyCAP version 3.5, one of those releases. I don't have an end date for that. What I will tell you is that our goal with EnergyCAP version 7 is to first integrate all of the functionality that's currently part of EnergyCAP version 3, so that EnergyCAP version 3 can be deprecated. And then once that is complete, we will integrate all of the features that are currently only available in the installed client. Those will also be integrated into version 7. At that time, then we will release a date for deprecating the installed client as well. But I do not have dates for either of those. There is, even if you're not interested in starting to use version 7 full time right now, the upgrades to Database 86 as well as EnergyCAP Online version 3.6.2, those are upgrades that you could do in your existing environment, and those will continue to be supported as well. If we didn't get a chance to answer your question, or if you think of some after we're done with the webinar, please feel free to reach out to our support team. Again, the web address is support.energycap.com. We'll be happy to address those questions. We hope this has been informative to you and your teams regarding EnergyCAP version 7. We're really excited for the new functionality that it provides, as well as some of the technical improvements within the system itself that you'll be able to take advantage of. And we look forward to hearing your feedback along the way as well. So thank you for your attendance. Take care.